What's up, Liron here. Thank you for joining me on episode 6 of my podcast. I'm really happy that you joined me today. I actually have a confession to make today. So I was starting to organize today's episode, and it's a bit of a different episode because what I'll be doing is sort of freestyling and talking about what I'm going through right now, the things in my work and art that really keep my mind busy, basically. And so the reason why this episode is different, in addition to that, is that the previous ones are a part of the 5 first ones I did as a batch, and I actually released them all together. This is the first one I produce more on a weekly basis. And so here's what happened. Basically, what I want to talk to you about again is a few things in my work right now and things that are really important for me in the direction in which I'm trying to go as an artist and as a businessman, basically, if I can call myself a businessman. But let's say in my business around my art making. Okay. And so the funny thing happened. I was actually starting to record an episode. I actually planned it out. I had an idea in mind and I started writing it down. And as I'm writing it down, I think to myself, nope, this is not what I feel like doing right now. And sometimes you have to make the distinction, because sometimes there's things you want to do that you don't want to do, rather, and you know you need to do them. But with this, it just felt like the episode plan wouldn't end up being authentic, and I wouldn't put myself in the best position to produce a good episode. So I just decided to scrap it. Well, I kept it aside for another week, perhaps, because I don't feel like it's fresh enough in my mind, and I don't feel I can deliver it with spontaneity. It's too planned for me. And so I think I went with the right choice here. I wanted to talk about a topic that's more well organized and really talk about the different aspects of it and tackle it from different directions. And it definitely wasn't what I felt like doing. So anyway, a bit about what I've been doing lately, and hopefully you've been enjoying the podcast so far. Let me know by sending me an email or leaving a comment, depending on where you listen to this, what you thought about the episodes so far. I'm really, really curious. So I'm going through an interesting time where I try to quote unquote attack a lot of different frontiers, because I'm just starting to realize the things that will matter and that do matter right now in terms of what's going on in the world on a more, let's say, macro level. So for example, for the longest time I focused in my work life basically on, making art, creating videos, and working on my books. This was my entire business plan, if you will. Now, an interesting thing is happening right now, which I had to respond to, and that is the audio becoming such an important part of our lives. And it's really interesting because it coincided with my desire to put myself in a position of more of a character in the world of creativity and art in general, and not just in the how to draw or how to paint world. This is something I've been thinking about for quite some time now, and I do plan on making a YouTube video and also a podcast episode here talking a bit about what I want. And so what I really want is a bit more zoomed out than this, and quite frankly, the success I'm looking for is much wider than that can be achieved only by teaching how to, a specific how to. I really want to be able to inspire millions of people to create with passion and with complete immersion and even courage, I would say, with the process of creation. And this is something that I don't really know also how I'm going to do, but it has a lot to do with, I think, personal example, meaning people see me and the way I work. And already I get the kind of feedback I get on YouTube is that my enthusiasm is contagious, or that I inspired someone to create. And honestly, that's the best kind of comment I can ask for, because it really tells me basically that I'm on the right track. It's really interesting because because when I do my videos, I have this sort of a loose idea of what I'm gonna talk about, and that's the best way I actually produce videos. The best ones turn out when I just have the basic idea and then I just free flow on it. And I wasn't doing it so far with the podcast, and now I decided to try it out and really allow myself to speak my mind, and it's really working so far. Hopefully you can feel this in my energy as well. I think it's a little different when you do something that's really congruent with the way you feel at the moment and with who you are, basically. So anyway, my goal really is to inspire large quantities of people out there, and huge numbers of people, and as you as the listener as well. I really want to inspire you to achieve whatever it is you desire in your artistic field. And so the interesting thing that happened was that audio became so significant in the last few years, and I'm so late to this show, but it's like podcasts have been popular for such a long time now, and I just figured out that I have to be here, especially if I tell myself that I want to be an influential character. Like, where's my voice? It has to be somewhere, not just in video form. And this has got me thinking about the whole idea of, like, the general idea I have in my mind is becoming like the Tony Robbins of creativity and productivity for artists and the business side, and like become a really prominent figure in that field. And if you don't know who Tony Robbins is, definitely check him out. I will write it down in the show notes so you can check it out. And I'm just writing it down for myself. But in any case, he's just an amazing person that really helps gazillions of people out there. And this is basically what I want to be able to achieve. And I don't know, it even gets to the point where I'm really thinking about where it started. Why am I like this? And why do I feel the need to want to do this? And even where I get the audacity to believe that I can. You know what I mean? Because, like... what do I have, and it's not just about myself. Every person can ask himself this question, like, what do I have that gives me the right to teach someone something like that? With my artwork, it's a little easier. When you teach art, you have something to demonstrate, and that's your credentials, for example. But with this thing, it feels like I'm kind of... It's something that I want to build by personal example, of just showing myself working really hard and creating a lot of art. And I just have this belief that I can do this, if that makes sense. I just know it inside that this is what I want to do. And I wasn't even planning on talking necessarily about that, but it just connected perfectly with the fact that audio becomes such a significant part of our lives. And when you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. I actually follow a lot of people that are in the scene of talking about different developments in the business world, in our world in general, and entrepreneurship, and I see this in multiple places, that audio is basically saving us time, because right now, if you're listening to this while you're maybe walking or jogging, maybe, I don't know, or just doing something else, and you can... you just maximize your time. You don't have to just clean. You can actually clean and listen to something. And I know this for sure because I'm like that too. Whenever I clean, whenever I cook, whenever I go for a walk, I just have to have something in my ear, whether it be music or ebooks or stuff like that. So anyway, audio is becoming so important, and it's just gonna, like what I heard, I'm just quoting like Gary Vaynerchuk, which I'll also mention in the show notes, is that it's gonna out arbitrage the internet, or video rather, in many senses, because video, it keeps you there in front of a screen. So in many ways, it's actually inferior to audio when you think about it in terms of efficiency. Now, the next step is taking the entire audio thing and making it like a really integral part of our lives. And this already has to do with smart homes and devices like Alexa, the Echo and the Dot and all of those stuff, that just make our lives easier. And for me, as an artist and as someone who strives for success, by the way, there's a cat outside. I hope it doesn't bother you too much, the noise. As someone who strives for success, I really have to think about these things and figure out how I'm gonna fit in that world. And it can really take on different shapes, because it's not that intuitive. And I'll give you I'm trying to think of a good example. For example, this podcast, or there's an app called Anchor that is about, like, you have your own radio station, you can do mini recordings of yourself, um, and talk about different things and put music in between your different shows. And I tried using this app for a while, and it's just audio, and it is a challenge for artists, I think, like me, for visual artists. It's like, well, okay, what do I do on this platform? How can it help me bring out my message to the world? And so in podcast form, it's rather easy for me. I just want to talk about all the different topics I talked about, inspiration and what to do when you don't feel inspired, and how to approach mastering a skill, or like an artistic endeavor, which is what I originally planned for today's episode. And I'll probably just postpone for the next one. So all of these different topics, of just figuring out how to purpose them to this medium of audio, because audio is just going to rule our lives, basically, in the next few years. And then comes virtual reality and all sorts of crazy stuff that will really break a lot of industries. So for me, let's take a few steps back to like what I was gonna, like, the main point here. I'm trying to figure out how to be on the next thing in a way that is both very honest with my goals, with my abilities, with my skills, with what I'm able to provide and give as an inspiration. And I think this is an interesting lesson here. If you're a creator and you do want to build something rather big around your art, and even if you want to build something small, for example, if you just want to be able to create your art and live off of it, and it can be considered a big achievement, by the way. But anyway, if you strive to achieve something that's really great, and maybe even scares you a bit. Great is not the right word. Like something big that scares you, and you want to take it out into the world. I think it's really important to be on top of these different things. And so this is where I've been in the last few, I guess, in the last 2 weeks, maybe, really thinking about new platforms, even new apps. Like, I'm constantly checking out the App Store, trying to find new apps to put my stuff on. For example, I know there's the app Musical.ly and Flipagram that I used just a bit in the past. But this month I decided to post there every single day. And basically Musical.ly and Flipagram, they're kind of similar. You just post a video of yourself, and you either sing, like you do a lip sync, or just something interesting and entertaining. And this is not necessarily my strongest point, but what I could do, and which is actually what I did so far, is to think about how I can repurpose my content for that app. So what I noticed also other people do is like speed painting videos. They can, I think, become pretty popular there if they're good. So I just publish every day, probably, like a speed painting video there, and it's just a different audience. It's a much younger audience that will one day become older, and if they discover you when they're young, and then they continue receiving exposure through different platforms, different apps, different mediums, videos, and things like this, then you can definitely build an audience around this. And my struggle, and this is also why I think I'm a bit different in that sense from other artists, is that it's really important for me to be in all these places, and to be in all of these developments. And it's confusing. It's really, really... it's hard to just keep up with everything, but it's kind of like, I'm not complaining, because it's all options. These are things that we didn't have in the past, like the ability to reach so many people pretty simply, just by publishing a video, or even self-publishing a book like I did in the beginning. publishing, like you don't need a TV station to approve you, or you don't need to know the CEO of anything. You just produce your own content, and this is something that I really enjoy doing. So this is really interesting. By the way, one of the things I enjoy doing the most is actually producing content and then selling it. And if it's educational, that's even better for me in many senses. So, for example, I love to, of course, if someone wants to buy a painting or a sketch, I'm really happy. But the thing that really brings me, I think, the most joy is actually whenever I get the chance to or when I get a chance, or not the chance, like whenever it happens that I sell something that I built, that the goal is to teach something. Okay, so it's like an added value. So for example, my drawing course, this is something that I'm really passionate about, just creating it and packaging it. That's the word I was looking for. Packaging it into a product and then publishing it and using ads and bring people there. These are some of the things that I really enjoy. And it could be partially because I like money and I like to get paid basically for what I do, and I aim to make a lot of money, and I don't really know. It's really fascinating because I have no idea where this journey is gonna lead me, and a lot of this has to do with just the situation in the world right now. For example, a lot of, like, my truth will stay the same. My goal will stay the same, to inspire other people to create with passion and courage, and to give people the confidence they need to maybe get going. This will stay the same no matter what happens outside. But my way of attaining what I want, or of expressing this message of mine, will definitely differ in accordance with the situation, the platforms that are popular in the world right now. It was so strongly up until this point YouTube, and now it's starting to really become like audio, because you can do it on the go. And so it's just fascinating to see how one's message can kind of move in different directions. Yeah, so, and by the way, this whole talk is the reason why I decided to make a podcast, because with the if this was like a drawing or painting video, I'd have to constantly pause and talk a bit about what I'm doing and explain this, and I wanted just a place to talk about all of these things, and hopefully you enjoy these kinds of talks that aren't necessarily around a specific topic. What I planned on doing for this episode was actually to talk again about mastering an artistic endeavor, or an artistic kind of journey, and to look at it through the lenses of micro and macro skills. And this is a topic I talked about on a YouTube video, actually, so you can definitely check it out. If you just search for mastering watercolor, micro and macro, you'll find it. And it's just a fascinating topic that I think is a good way of breaking this down, and the response to the video was really good, because from what I saw, at least in the comments, people really were able to see their own artistic work through these lenses. So it was very interesting, and this is another thing I really like. So as an artist, you keep having insights and you learn things basically over and over again. You learn sometimes the same ideas in a kind of a circular way, and what I find is that the more I grow, the more I internalize different ideas that are a little more advanced, and this is one of those. It's just a way of looking at things, and when these little insights happen is where I'm the most excited. I had this similar insight only a few days ago, that I realized for the longest time I've been really immersing myself in one style of painting, trying to learn from a few very specific artists, and then I got like I became not really interested in that style, because I felt like I'm just imitating other people's work, and so I went the other way, and I just decided to try out something really different and go back to basics and all sorts of things like this. And what was so interesting is that I just I didn't recognize the fact that I actually learned something from these artists that I was allegedly imitating. So what happened was I stopped working in that very loose painting style and went back to the basics. But then after maybe a week or so, I was like, that's interesting. I'm doing a lot of things right now that I did learn from these artists, and I didn't realize up until this point that are actually quite good and fit with my own personal style. They don't feel like I copied anything. It's like the insight of me actually learning something from that was delayed, and I just realized it like a while afterwards. By the way, if you're curious about that insight, it's the playing around with warm and cool. So I learned that from Alvaro Castanei, which I'll also mention in the show notes, even though I already did. He does this thing where he really plays around with blue and red, and this is something I didn't do in the past, and it's one kind of small gesture, if you will, or like a small, how should I call it, like a very small thing you can do that can really enhance your work, and I found a way for it to fit perfectly with my own style. And this was really interesting, and you can see this if you go through my recent videos of talking about my portraits and basically the portraits, mainly the portraits, and some of the very recent videos. You'll see me doing this, and this is something I completely took from Alvaro Castanei, and I'm like, whoa, that's actually quite good. I wasn't expecting it to be so integrated into my own style. So this is something really interesting, and whenever I have these little aha moments, and actually this gives me an idea as well. I'm gonna add this as a vid idea. I'm writing this down as we speak. Vid idea, cool warm shadows. This is really interesting. It could be like a very quick tip that my audience on YouTube will enjoy, or you will enjoy if you're gonna watch it there. So anyway, yeah. One more thing that I want to end with, and it's really interesting, and it makes me wonder. When I used to do the daily videos on YouTube, I found out that I have much more ideas for videos, because what would happen is my mind was like, okay, this is what we're doing now. We're doing daily videos. Okay, here's a bunch of ideas, so you never basically run out of them. And I would have an idea for every day. I would have ideas stacked for like 2 or 3 weeks in advance. So that's like 21 video ideas. And the more the frequency went up, the more I had more ideas, and this is the more ideas I had. And this is what's so interesting, because right now the podcast is going to be on a weekly basis, just because there's so many things to do around, and I don't think people can contain more than that. But let me know, by the way, what you think about that consistency, but frequency rather. But in any case, it's really interesting because I haven't gone through that same learning process with the podcast yet. I don't think I will ever do daily podcasts, but who knows? But in any case, this act of doing a daily routine in that sense can really bring you to different heights. And right now, in terms of ideas for the podcast, I have maybe like 4 or 5 ideas in advance, and I'm sure that if I would do this daily, I'd have like 10 or 20. So it's just interesting how our brain kind of knows when you need more resources, and it just releases them for you. So this is just fascinating. Another thing I noticed here on the podcast is that I need to better concentrate on how I phrase things. In videos, I have the whole video aspect to fall back on or to rely on. But here, when it's just audio, I really sometimes need to stop and think about how I'm going to phrase a sentence. So English is not my first language, but still, I think I'm kind of at an okay level, but still, it really makes me work on the abilities that are, I think, the most challenging when learning a new language. Not that I'm learning it as a new language, I've been talking English for most of my life, but still, it's like the thing that's most challenging with languages that aren't like your native language is that there are like a billion ways to phrase things, and how you phrase something actually matters and actually influences, regardless of tone or like the way you speak. really influences the meaning and the vibe behind what you say. So anyway, that's a really interesting thing. So I want to wrap up this episode of my podcast. I really hope you enjoyed it. This was really different from the previous ones. It was a bit more off the rails, I would say, like more spontaneous, just me sharing some of my thoughts. I want you to let me know what you think about this. This is important for me, and I also want to make sure that I am able to provide you with what interests you, okay? Because I know you're a real person, you're listening on the other side, and I want to make sure that my episodes are interesting to listen to in terms of the topics and just the way I talk. So let me know, leave me I'll have all the details in the show notes on how you can contact me. I believe you can even comment there, even if it's on my website. So definitely check it out. And this is it for today. I'll be out now. I want to thank you again. I really, really appreciate all of the support and the comments and the kind words, and even the ability, as I mentioned earlier, to just inspire and help you in any way that I can. It doesn't really matter in which way it is. So this is it for today. Take care, and I will talk to you really soon.